Hello, magandang araw. It's 2 days before the inauguration, and the Supreme Court en banc has just cleared the path, the legal hurdles towards Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. being inaugurated, the 17th President of the Republic, by noontime on June 30. I am Lian Buan, Justice Reporter of Rappler, and I have with me for this recap our Comelec reporter Dwight De Leon, and we're coming to you with breaking news, mainly from Padre Faura. The justices held their en banc session kaninang umaga, and they decided by a vote of 13-0 to junk or dismiss the petitions for one for disqualification and another for cancellation of the certificate of candidacy against President-elect Bongbong Marcos. They voted 13-0, ibig sabihin unanimous. Two of the justices didn't vote because of their links to Comelec, and so where we stand today, there are no legal hurdles para ma-inaugurate si President-elect Bongbong Marcos Jr. sa June 30 sa Thursday, and unlike the proclamation in Congress where there was this cloud over his head kung gagalaw ba yung Supreme Court now, makakahinga siyang mabuti sa Huwebes at ma-inaugurate siya without any legal hurdle to that path as our 17th President, Dwight.
So ayun, Lian, thanks for having me here. So ngayon meron ng press release yung Supreme Court about the decision. Now, siguro curious din yung mga tao, how did the justices decide on the arguments presented by the petitioners na gusto ngang sana last ditch effort ay mapigilan si President-elect Marcos Jr. from succeeding in the Malacanang?
Good question, Dwight. Curious din ako. Wala rin akong nakuhang sagot. And the petitioners, I'm sure, are also scratching their heads because I feel like they're getting now massive requests for reactions. And how can they react to a presser like this? I'll just read to you. It is a very short press briefer. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 6 paragraphs. The 3 paragraphs are backgrounds, and the 4th paragraph just says this. The court held that in the exercise of its power to decide the present controversy led them to no other conclusion but that respondent Marcos Jr. is qualified to run and be elected to public office. Likewise, his COC, being valid and in accord with pertinent law, was rightfully upheld by the Comelec. Ibig sabihin, hindi natin alam kung ano ba yung kanilang substantive decision. It almost reads like respect my opinion. Pero syempre, this is a press briefer. And I think we have to wait a little longer kasi kung kanina lang nila promulgate yan, ibig sabihin they just voted this morning. So the majority opinion written by Justice Rodil Zalameda will have to be circulated among the 13 or pwedeng baka yung buong 15. It will have to be circulated, and they'll have to siguro reconcile pa some of the arguments that they didn't agree upon. Initially, some might want to write concurring opinion. Walang dissenting opinion, so nobody's gonna write a dissenting opinion. So basically, it's a unanimous court. The 2 dissenting were Justice Antonio Co, who you covered in the Comelec, and kaya siya nag-inhibit is because he was part of the commission that decided this on their level. And Justice Henry John Paul Inting, siya ang brother ni incumbent commissioner sa Coro Inting, so that's why he also inhibited. Dwight, just a recap for those watching this. This roots from the 1997 conviction of Bongbong Marcos for failure to file his income tax returns for 4 consecutive years. That's from 1982 to 1985. He was convicted first by the trial court, then by the Court of Appeals, and then it became final and executory. Both petitions, actually all petitions, make the argument na dahil na-convict siya, because it's a criminal conviction, it's a criminal tax conviction, it automatically disqualified him from running for public office. But there are some loopholes na nangyari because the prevailing tax code at the time from 1982 to 1984 didn't have a mandatory disqualification clause. Wala rin siyang mandatory prison clause. So, doon magkakaroon ng lusot sana si Marcos, but the tricky year was 1985 because magpa-file ka ng ITR mo ng 1985, the next year na 1986, and by 1986 there was a new tax code that mandated or that made it automatic that anyone convicted under the tax code will be perpetually disqualified from office. And of course, there's the argument of if you fail to file an ITR for 4 consecutive years and you are a public officer, then you basically committed a crime of moral turpitude. Ibig sabihin, it's against social justice, morals, and yung parang it's inherently wrong for you not to file if you are a public officer. But unfortunately, both for the petitioners, their lawyers, and the public, we don't know how the Supreme Court decided on that. But I understand, Dwight, na meron pang pending sa COMELEC level.
Yes, actually, palagi tayo nakatanggap ng updates about these Marcos cases that we tend to forget na may isa pang natitira sa COMELEC, and siguro testament din ito sa kung paano ba hinandle ng COMELEC yung cases. For example, in 2015, may multiple cases against Grace po, then the presidential frontrunner. And at that time, kinonsolidate ng COMELEC yung cases. Ngayon, may kinonsolidate silang ilang cases, katulad nga nung isang nakarating sa Supreme Court, pero may ibang kaso na hindi consolidated, katulad ng itong kaso ng final ng Ilocano nga Pudno nga Ilocano. This was filed by them. Ang lawyer nila si former COMELEC chairman na Christian Monsod. Actually, yung arguments sa kasong to similar lang din sa earlier petitions filed with the COMELEC, tapos naitakbo nga sa Supreme Court, and same lang din yung naging desisyon ng COMELEC, at least sa division level, na yun nga Marcos Jr. did not commit a crime involving moral turpitude dahil lamang sa kanyang non-filing of ITR. They mentioned yung 2009 Supreme Court ruling which said that, and while they acknowledge na possible na pwedeng sabihin na obiter dictum ito, they can still cite the case if it is, or they can still cite the Supreme Court case if it is relevant to the one that they're handing now. So isa yun sa mga arguments. Another one is that ayun nga, ang argument ng petitioners ay dahil na-convict si Marcos Jr. ng trial court at ng Court of Appeals noong 1995 and 1997 for violating the amended tax code, they argued that it also carries an accessory penalty of disqualification from public office. But the commissioners sa unbank level, ito ay sina Commissioner Socorro Inting, Commissioner Amy Ferralino at Commissioner Amy Neri at the time, they said na it is incorrect to conclude na yung penalty of perpetual disqualification ay it is deemed imposed along with the basic penalty. So what I'm saying is it might be difficult to cling to the possibility na magpo-prosper itong kasong ito pa. But then it's still that one case remaining sa COMELEC unbank, at naghihintay tayo ng resolution anytime now. The petition was junked at the division level noong April 20, and then a motion for reconsideration was filed on April 25. But it's anong date na? June 28 na. Pero wala pang resolution sa kasong 'yon.
Yeah, Dwight, you and I have read almost all the petitions and the resolutions that came out, and basically they're coming from one, it roots from one issue, which is the conviction, at iba-iba lang sila ng framing because some filed one filed a cancellation for COC, and then the others had to resort to disqualification because they missed the deadline. So basically what we're saying is they're basically all the same arguments. So if we were to follow consistency of ruling, then probably they're headed to one fate. Pero Dwight, does it matter na defer yung appointments ng ibang commissioner, and magkakaroon ba ng mga bagong commissioners? And sa batas naman, it depends on who's sitting there. So does it matter that baka magkaroon ng bagong mga tao sa COMELEC?
Well, possible magkaroon ng bagong tao sa COMELEC, but I really find it difficult to see na nababago yung potential outcome nitong huling kaso sa COMELEC. Let's just look at the case right now, yung composition ng COMELEC. We have 4 remaining commissioners, all Duterte appointees, but all of them voted to junk cases against Marcos Jr. May 3 na bypass yung commission on appointment, si Chairman Saidamen Pangarungan, Commissioner George Garcia, and Commissioner Amy Neri. But at one point, they all voted to junk the cases against Marcos Jr. And now, may dalawang scenario kasi potentially pwede silang ma-reappoint sa COMELEC ni Marcos Jr. Pero kung ganun man at by that time wala pang resolution at boboto ulit sila, then siguro we're expecting the same outcome. Another scenario, si Marcos Jr. yung mag-a-appoint ng kanyang mga bagong tao sa COMELEC na hindi itong mga na-bypass. Well, it's unlikely siguro na makita natin na itong mga taong in-appoint ni Marcos Jr. would vote against him. So it's really just difficult to see another scenario for this, except na yun nga ma-junk siya sa COMELEC on bank level. Pero well, of course, pag nangyari yun, cleared na yung desks ng COMELEC. Pero may chance pa yung losing party, whoever that is, potentially the petitioners, to go to the Supreme Court. So there will still be that one last chapter or last episode dito sa disqualification saga na ito. But what do you think, Ian? I don't think na kahit sa Supreme Court, kung ngayon nag-decide na sila 13-0, then ganun lang din yung outcome.
Yeah, 13-0 is a little hard to reverse. But probably they'll say it's premature to talk about it now kasi hindi natin alam how they decided, and maybe if the petitioners, I mean, they are represented by the best lawyers out there. Baka may makita silang something about the ruling that would that they can cite in their MR. Pero I was just thinking, Dwight, bukod dun sa fact na if the Duterte appointed commissioners are reappointed, then they'll be voting the same, which is to junk the cases. And if they are not, then Marcos will be appointing the commissioners. And it's highly unlikely that the commissioners will vote to disqualify their appointing power. And bukod doon, I think this ruling by the Supreme Court just made it easier for the COMELEC to junk the remaining petitions, because now they have a ruling that they can cite that are very specific to the facts in front of them. It's the same case. So meron na silang, as in, meron na silang, ito na, sabi na ng Korte Suprema. And probably people who are watching this might be uncomfortable with us talking about this case as if it's purely political, when in fact, on the surface it is legal, but we know that it might not be purely political, but it is highly political. And so we face the reality that this is, he was voted by 31 million people. And, the Supreme Court has shown deference to respecting the will of the sovereign and the will of the other branches. So I think, with this talaga, when Marcos takes his oath as the 17th President of the Republic by June 30, then it seems very likely that he will be the president for 6 years, barring whatever that can happen that we cannot foresee. Ayun,
Yes.
Salamat. Yes, thank you, Dwight. And that was a recap of the breaking news for today from Padre Faura. Maraming salamat. I'm Lian Bon.
I'm Dwight De Leon. Thanks for watching.